and I am the Destination Management Coordinator for the Oregon Coast Visitors Association. Thank you all for being here this morning. You are in the mountain biking workshop. Just a quick note, Casey here, raise your hand, is going to record this workshop session. So one, if any of you are like in hiding or don't hear your voice be heard, that is going on. As a side note, language might be important. He does work with the county commissioners in Lincoln County. So just so you know that is going on. I'm really happy you guys are all here. As a regional destination management organization, we really prioritize regional projects that are attractive to consumers, but are also very beneficial to our communities. So getting that sweet spot projects that work for both audiences is really important to us. Over the past couple of years, we've really invested a lot in the South Coast mountain biking trails, as well as like Clutchie Peak up here on the North Coast, starting to think a little bit more about the Central Coast as well. Mountain biking is one of these activities that we've seen and is great for visitors. They come in, they come specifically for mountain biking, and then it fits really well with our communities. They're out on the trails all day, they're exhausted, they have dinner, a beer, and they go to bed. That's been kind of our experience so far. So we really wanted to start talking about how we, as different trail groups and different sub-regions on the Oregon coast, can start working together and planning how we can become a destination, a place that people want to come and do north to south or south to north as an entire experience. So today we have Dalgaard, who's with Travel Oregon, as well as with the Timber Trail, and Gabriel, who's also with the Timber Trail, and Limberlost. Yes, so two experts that are going to talk to us a little bit about this. I'll let them continue to get away. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you, Arica. Yeah. So, Arica invited us to come in, largely just provide a learning opportunity for where we've come with the Oregon Timber Trail. We started in earnest in 2015, and we've come a really long way in a short period of time. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the Oregon Timber Trail, Kate's going to cue up a video just as like a nice little video primer to kind of whet our appetites on what it is and what experience we've crafted thus far.
There may or may not be sound.
I'll just hum for the soundtrack.
Big jerk-offs in Maryville. We can invest in minutes.
That's good enough for a tease, I think. It goes on, it gets better, but...
We're on a big meeting, can we go like nice out?
Good stuff. So that was actually a group of Norwegians that came over in this year in June, I believe, and somehow they carried all that camera equipment to film that and still finished all 670 miles in I think 12 or 13 days. So Norwegians are cooler than I am, I guess. It's the moral of the story.
It's a really cool longer video though. It's like 14 minutes. It's all in Norwegian, but it kind of goes into like the whole bikepacking experience and really what differentiates the Oregon Timber Trail from a traditional mountain biking style thing. But pretty cool to have Norwegians come over and do that.
Yeah, so
Where did you find that video?
it is on bikepacking.com. They posted it a couple weeks ago. It's not posted on the Oregon Timber Trail website yet, and it should be, so they probably will soon. So like Harry mentioned, we've been working together for a number of years now on the Timber Trail and a little bit on the Fat Bike to Oregon Coast project before that. My name is Gabriel Tiller. I'm with Limberlost, my own company, and then helped found the Oregon Timber Trail Alliance with Harry and other board members. Chris here is in the audience. So,
Chris is the other founder here, for sure.
so yeah, it's been a really fun project. I've been bikepacking for a number of years before that, and even creating some other routes in Oregon for that. But this is far and away the most complex and largest project I've ever taken on in this realm. So yeah, thanks for coming. We're going to talk a little bit about what we learned in the last 4 years developing the Timber Trail and how we can take those lessons and bring them out here.
I'm Harry Dalgaard, so I work with Travel Oregon as our regional cooperative tourism program director, and I work with our regional partners across the state to make investments in tourism projects and programming that is really responsive to trends and opportunities across the state. So really help them in planning and then execution of their plans to help deliver new experiences and really kind of further bolster existing tourism experiences across the state. So as Arica mentioned, there's a lot of new tourism experiences and investments coming out of that system into the coast. So today we're going to just take some time to walk you through with what we've learned at the Timber Trail level, and then spend the rest of the time really learning from you and having you guys come together as an initial community of advocates on the coast here to really kind of help formulate an initial vision statement and really proposition what the coastal riding proposition should look like.
So, backing up a little bit, who's here heard of the Timber Trail before today? Who has not heard of the Timber Trail before today? Anyone? Got one? Okay, a couple. Great. So, Timber Trail is a long distance backcountry mountain bike trail. It's very similar.
Not there.
It's done anyway.
Very similar to like what the Pacific Crest Trail is, but with mountain biking in mind. As you may or may not know, Pacific Crest Trail doesn't allow any bicycles on it. There are a lot of wilderness areas in Oregon that don't allow bicycles on the trails within them. So we were like, well, this is still a really cool concept. It's getting people out in these backcountry areas, but how can we provide that experience for people on mountain bikes? So we started looking at maps and developing the concept with that goal in mind. And after about a year and a half, we came up with something that is just under 700 miles long. Like I said, the Norwegians did it in 12 days. Most people take about 20 to do it. And it's divided into 4 tiers that are really representative of each landscape that the trail passes through.
So yeah, mentioned at the start, but you know, this Oregon Timber Trail has a really short gestation period and then development period. We started in earnest in 2015 looking at maps and quickly realized that through an addition, a parallel scope of work, we were looking at hut systems that we had potentially found an amazing route through the Cascades. We brought that in-house and started working with Gabe at that period of time to really flesh out some of the cartographic elements, and then we worked to really establish and further refine the route with primarily the Forest Service initially, and then other user groups and adjacent communities along the route. Right around that time, we realized that this was a project that was far outgrew the capabilities of what Travel Oregon could do in the space. So spun it out at that period of time and created our own organization, the Oregon Timber Trail Alliance, to really foster the development and continue working forth on developing the concept even more. So that brings us to 2019, where we are is really like in our third year as an organization, doing some awesome fundraising, looking to get Gabe as a full-time paid executive director in the near future here. So really realizing that the body of work is enormous, and 700 miles of trail doesn't take care of itself. So really understanding what it means to formulate and steward all that land.
Yeah, every time I meet someone and they find out I'm involved with the timber trail, they're like, wow, that seems like it just appeared overnight. And it didn't. It was actually already there before we even showed up on the scene. And that was a really strategic move on our part when we looked at creating this long distance trail, this hut-to-hut system. We're like, wow, how many millions of dollars is this going to take, and how many decades before we can build this much trail in Oregon? Maybe we should start off with the lower-hanging fruit and analyze what's already on the ground and how we can really take that, repackage it, and tell its story better. And that's all we did. We built something by telling its story better without putting a single shovel on the ground. And that was a really low-cost and really quick approach to this. And now we've developed this mass momentum, this community behind it that can now work with us to advocate for those more expensive and more lofty goals.
So, Harry, the trails were already there, and y'all just packaged them together, or?
Yeah, bingo.
I'm
Absolutely. So, like looking at the network of trails within the Oregon Cascades, there are legacy trails developed in the 1950s to maybe even prior to that. So it took a lot of unused or lightly used trails that allowed mountain bike use, and stringing it together, to create one amazing and curated experience. So yeah, I'd say like what 90% of the actual trail miles are on Forest Service land, and then there's a little bit of Hood River County land at the end of our trail in the river.
Okay.
But yeah, they all pre-existed. That is an important realization, especially in context of the coast, where a lot of the trails, you do have a lot of trails that exist. Are they the experience that you want to provide to potential users?
So this is just some stats from our all-time website views. So it's been hugely popular. I'm constantly impressed at how many people are doing it or talking about it or wanting to do it. Someone was just traveling, a friend of mine was traveling in Italy and ran into someone there that really couldn't stop talking about the timber trail. So it's like really cool to see just how big the reach is. And I think there's a couple, I think some of it's because of the work we did, some of it's just because we were in the right place at the right time. There's a lot of momentum around bikepacking and this type of experience right now. So it's just really cool to see this thing grow, and like I said, really harness that momentum and see where we can go with it. So here, in order to download the mapping files and the route guide, you have to fill out a survey. So we've got really good demographic research from all the people that are generally interested in riding the timber trail. I think this is over 20 countries around the world, people that have downloaded these materials. So really cool to see where everyone's coming from and what their interests are. So mountain biking on the Oregon coast. 5 years ago, there's probably some trails that I didn't know about, but like there was nothing, like you look at Trail Forks and there was going to be nothing on the Oregon coast. That's not to say there weren't any trails, but there really wasn't anyone mountain biking, or at least traveling and mountain biking. And then today, we've got, a pretty good selection of mountain biking trails on the coast. You don't have, pink bike traveling down and doing exposés on anything yet, but I would say in 5 years' time, this is really incredible to have this many different mountain bike destinations on the coast. And I think if we strategically work on those and expand those, I think they can link together really well. So maybe we should go through each one of these just one by one. Clutchie Creek, I think we just have someone here, a couple people here from Clutchie Creek. Congrats on getting that open. That was like open a couple months ago. That's awesome. We're talking about heading there actually on the way back home. So, really say, how many miles are open there?
4.
Okay, cool.
Just under that.
Great. Tillamook State Forest, that's a little bit off the coast, but it's on a transportation corridor of the coast, so we're going to include that. There's some really good legacy trails there, and I think there's starting to be, I think the land managers there are really receptive to providing more mountain bike experience, so I think there's a lot of potential there for development. Wilder, I don't know anything about Wilder. I saw it on Trail Forks. Anybody here? Yeah?
Yeah, City of Newport and then Casey's with the county and the Newts, which is the nonprofit organization that just started. And yeah, it's all private land though. That's where we run into, land management.
Yeah.
And we do the mountain bike race or Coastal Classic out there. And it's, I think for the past 4 years, we ran into logging issues prior to the race. And so we're in the process of working, well, the Newts is in the process of working with us, the city, to get onto public land that we have that's within the city limits to create a year-round usage.
Like, how many miles do you think on Wilder?
Wilder mileage-wise, I would say 12 to 14. Cool. And that's running over about, I think, 4 different private landowners.
And that's great that it's legitimate enough. You have a good enough relationship with the landowners that you can run an event on it. So I mean, that's really
Fun trails.
And the Newts is what kind of organization?
Newts is Newport Area Trail Stewards, so.
Oh, okay, like goats or?
Emerging nonprofit to manage the trails and manage volunteers. And, but Wilder too, I think it's important to note, is also an ICA approved course as well, which has been really cool since we have, started a mountain bike club for the high school. So it's been ICA certified, which is a good thing.
great.
The wheels moving.
And one thing I just realized I left out here that's more like a 2021 maybe is the Torta. I just talked to Josh. They've got, I think, 30 miles planned out, which is really, really exciting. I can't wait to see that come to life.
Where's that?
That is just near here in Meeker.
Good, just good.
Just what, 20 minutes away from here? 30?
What's it called?
The Porta Trails or
Phase 1 is Sector 1004.
Sector 1004?
The whole area is a Sand Lake project area, and that area itself is 20,000 acres. And Phase 1 is just a small sector right along the improved Forest Road 1004, so that's why I call it Sector 1004. But it's all right between the two capes, Cape Lookout and Cape Wanda, just east of Wayland Island.
One thing to add there with Clutchie and Torta, we're already having a lot of conversations and working together, trying to have a regional approach.
Sweet.
Great. I mean, if that's all that comes out of us standing up here and talking to you today, then it's going to be a success. Because we're trying to connect all of you and try to create this cohesive strategy. Cape Mountain.
Cape Mountain's actually horse trails.
Is it just horse trails?
Yeah, I was just talking to the horse service guy in there. But I noticed, yeah, it's on trail for a lot, but just north of there, just coming to
Right.
and so.
Oh, okay. Cool. Right, yeah, that was fun. So.
That's good, and there's those old legacy trails up top.
Yeah, it's all got shut down.
Yeah, we got it.
Whiskey Run, that one's probably seen the most limelight here in the past year or two. And that's come online really quick. I don't know how many miles is down there, but I mean, for there being none just a couple years ago. How many?
More than 23.
23, wow.
And then Rogue River, that's just sort of a lone trail, and maybe there's more down there, but that's the one that's showing up on Trail Forks. And that's another legacy trail that seems like it's similar to a lot of the Oregon Timber Trail trails, where it's a cool concept, but it's sort of been left behind and not really been maintained. So I haven't ridden it myself, but that was.
But a really cool opportunity to potentially do some pairing with the jet boat operator down there as well. You can have like a jet boat shuttle.
Cool.
That would be cool.
It's got completely redone. 30 new river crossings, it's totally ready.
Did it? Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that was an RTP project in 2015 or something.
Great.
Nice.
Cool, so that's a snapshot of what I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more trails that are sort of road trails. And I'm sure there's more that people are thinking about or planning. So I think that's really exciting just to see that momentum in such a short period of time.
I got a quick question. When you use the term legacy trail, does that just mean an old trail, existing old trail? That's all that means, right?
Yeah, old,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, no specific definition. That's sort of coming from Forest Service language, where a lot of the legacy trail system was built as a transportation system for supplying fire lookouts and whatnot back in the early 1900s.
So there was actually like a function of that word, like it meant for moving stuff for firework.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's something specific, but that's sort of how I've become accustomed to. A lot of mountain bike trails that we think are amazing mountain bike trails were actually just supply routes for those fire lookouts. So.
Sure. So when we currently use that term, it just means an old existing trail.
Yeah.
Yep. Bingo. But yeah, you can see up on this map, so this is Trail Force like heat map. So this is equivalent of like what Strava does on roads, but Trail Force made this functionality recently, and you can see places like Oak Ridge.
Oak Ridge is here.
Yeah, Oak Ridge,
And
Portland. I don't know if people are running Forest Park, Sandy Ridge, Ashland down here. So all the existing trail systems on the coast, they exist. We just verified that. But people aren't running there, or they're just not using the app to determine while they're there. So there could be a little bit of technological error, but theoretically, this is capturing the demand in the state and the usage patterns in the state, at least in terms of mountain biking. So I think with the existing assets that we have on the ground that are built, like one of the question marks for us is like, how do we get people there? And that's why you all are at a tourism conference. We know how to get people there. Marie.
One of the things that was in conversation early on the South Coast, especially with Whiskey Run, is kind of this teeter-totter of build it, but then promote it. And you want to have the asset ready to go for the tourists. Once you tell them it's there, you don't want them to come and not have the best experience. So I feel like a little bit that's where the South Coast has been, and maybe we're a little bit more on the we're ready to promote it side. But I hear you. What I hear from you is there's an opportunity to talk, hey, we're ready on the entire coast. So is that, are other people, tourists, ready? Or is this something to just start a conversation about how do we promote more the coast as a regional mountain biking destination?
I think both. I think in varying degrees, certain parts of the North Coast already. But yeah, today's conversation is just basically about when to acknowledge when it's ready to market to like the general public, and then two, when you all do decide to individually go out and market, how can you do that in a way that's really collaborative, not parasitic, and not looking to take riders from another area, but to create a coastal experience. And I know folks on the South Coast are probably especially sensitive to that because it's the longest journey from most riding destinations. So really, a lot of our thought, for example, on the Timber Trail, it's like it starts in Lakeview, Oregon. Like how do you get people down to Lakeview, Oregon? Well, you create a series of experiences north of Lakeview, and that's exactly what's happened on the South Coast. You have a strong concentration of riding down there, and that's where the journey will start.
And leverage that what we think of maybe is not ready for prime time, leverage that experience. Like, so a lot of people want to be the first ones, even if experience isn't super polished, they want to be that person there experiencing something before it's polished, it's like that pioneer aspect of it. Like outside of Lakeview, Morgan Butte, like that's probably the best place to go for a day ride or a couple day ride, and you know, it doesn't show up on here at all. Most people say the old Cascades Crest is their favorite trails of the whole timber trail. That's right in there, and there's nothing in there. So, you know, there's certainly opportunities along the coast for those really exceptional experiences as well.
Harry, you mentioned you were asking how we get people here to ride mountain bikes. I feel as though the user group is already here, at least certainly in the north coast. We're seeing people, the outdoor recreational users are here. They're here to surf, they're here to use the waterways, they're here to just experience the outdoors however they like to do that. I feel as though mountain biking is a key component that is absolutely missing. And so the people are here, they already own bikes, they have houses down here, they're already visiting the north coast. Our philosophy with Torta and working with Pucci and our philosophy is let's create a brand for the entire Oregon coast, similar to what BC has done with the North Shore. You get into Vancouver, you go up to Squamish, you go to Whistler, and you go to Pemberton. All similar to very similar distances away as what we have here on the coast, about an hour away from each other. And if we can create that experience here, I feel as though the South Coast will certainly benefit from the brand. And we're like, let's go to the coast. It's year-round riding. To an extent, all of our shoulder seasons where we have a hyper focus during the summer, come spring and fall and certainly winter, our seasons drop off here. Well, the coast, as most of you know, has year-round riding. Oak Ridge, all these places that are highlighted in red that we're seeing are shut down. Last year, there was no mountain biking for a number of months, and the coast was thriving. Ready to thrive.
I was hiking in the snow in Oak Ridge 2 days ago, so like the season's already over there.
So I feel as though the people are here, and as soon as we have trails to ride, also that's going to bring the masses, especially in our off season. So I feel as though I'm really excited about it.
Yeah,
and actually, that's what we're actually paying So what makes Oregon Coast so special? The unknown, like I was mentioning, like it's intriguing. Like people are like, "There's mountain biking on the coast." Like that's important. Leverage that. Being like, "Yeah, there's mountain biking here." You'd only showed up here last year or something. You could be one of the first ones to ride it. All season. That's what Josh is talking about. I mean, most of Oregon is buried under snow from November until May, which is essentially half the year. I can think of very few places that actually are open or fun to ride. I know most people from Portland go to Washington over to Syncline to ride during the winter. And I think the Oregon coast could be that place to ride for the Portland metro area and for other population centers in Oregon and outside of Oregon. And I think one component to this that's really unique, I know the Oregon coast is very seasonal and everyone struggles to retain the workforce here in the off season, and mountain biking is something that could help sustain that. The dirt. A lot of places in Oregon, a lot of places in the higher country get really drier soils. Bend is known for its mountain biking, but the dirt sucks. The sand is awesome. And the Oregon coast, I don't think you can go anywhere on the Oregon coast and find that dirt for mountain biking. So I think that's really special too. It's something that definitely can work to its advantage. And it really functions well with that all-season riding, and then it drains well, and it can handle the traffic, and it stays fun to ride, whether it's wet or dry. And then the ocean, obviously, people are coming to the Oregon coast to see the coast. They want to see the ocean. They want to go eat seafood. They want to walk on the beach. Maybe they want to drop their kids off the beach and go mountain biking. Really take that ocean and try to figure out how to incorporate that part of that ocean into every cycling experience you're creating. So how can we apply what we learned from the timber trail to the Oregon coast? How do we take those basic concepts and sort of generalize them and reapply them? Like I mentioned, all we did with the timber trail was really look at the landscapes, take an inventory, and really tell its story well. So with the Oregon Timber Trail, we saw this emerging trend of bike packing. Saw it was becoming popular. Saw that it had a larger demographic. I think it had a lot of appeal. I think more and more people were getting bored with sort of the standard stacked loop mountain bike system and really wanting to get out and explore the backcountry more. And I think that interest is still growing, and we're really trying to engage that demographic. And then what? That's especially important when you're talking to people that aren't mountain bikers. Like, you know, I'm a mountain biker. I like riding on flow trails, and pump tracks, backcountry single track, cross country. You know, I like that, but like, that doesn't mean anything to someone who doesn't mountain bike. So with the timber trail, we're like really focused. Okay, what is this? This is backcountry and single track. So we're focused on a backcountry single track experience. And if you really define that experience and explain it to land managers and other stakeholders, it makes a lot more sense to them. So this is something I think we did really well from the get-go. We really looked at what this timber trail is all about. You know, it's taking all these sort of abandoned trails, forgotten logging roads, stitching them together, all these, you know, different but connected landscapes, and really telling its story really well through a variety of channels. Buy-in, this is probably the most painful one, right? At least for me, I'm sort of an introvert. So we contacted and engaged with over 100 stakeholders along this 670-mile route. We held 4 charrettes all the way down in Lakeview, Oak Ridge, Bend, Hood River, all along the Oregon Timber Trail, and really worked with the land managers, other user groups, and at the end of the day, it was a really valuable process. We heard concerns, we reported concerns, we tried to mitigate concerns, we heard opportunities, and change the alignment in a lot of different areas to try to create a better experience and mitigate those concerns. And that's still, I mean, I think that still is as long and arduous of a process that can be sometimes. It's still something today that's really valuable. People are like, oh, you have a good relationship with the land manager. And I'm like, yeah, and that was because we, you know, like we did our time and dealt with that from day one.
I would say from our perspective, that's essential.
Yeah.
That is number one.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we started. When we started drawing lines on a map, and then we're like, okay, who owns the land or who manages the land? And like Eric mentioned, it's like 95%. Or as far as the trails, the timber trail routes on some roads, which are some Oregon, some ODOT roads. As far as the trails that the timber trail routes on, it's 99% Forest Service. But 4 different national forests. So stand out, I think that really matters. It can be really sort of a low-hanging fruit. You're looking to create an identity for yourself. You're looking to create that intrigue and really draw people in. And you're really trying to, every time there's a little blip that people see, you want them to recognize that that's associated with your product.
Yeah, so branding, right? I mean, Arica kind of stumbled on this when titling this conference session, but Dirtway, I mean, it's good.
Yeah, I think you're the one who said it, but you did that right.
Okay,
So
well, that's a technique where you actually say somebody else did something.
you're trying to make everyone silent. Your name's Erica.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Inspire that's easy on the coast. Let the beauty sell itself. Really document that. Get pictures of people riding bikes. Get pictures of people riding bikes with ocean in that background on beautiful trails. It's a pretty simple equation that a lot of people stumble through, and I think it's super important, especially again from an early stage in the game.
And this is one that I feel like, you know, when your riding areas all get established, I mean, when you're scoping it out, you know, I think I've told, you know, like a lot of folks in this room independently who are trail planners, like get that ocean view involved in it. Like get that hero shot somewhere where like people can photograph an ocean in the background. I mean, that's experience that you're selling. You want to be able to at least have that experience on trail too. So I know that takes a little legwork with little land managers, but if you can incorporate ocean views, that's the single largest like unique identifier, I think, in the whole experience outside of the other physical characteristics. But yeah, I mean, really utilize the ocean to your advantage there. And there's not too many riding areas on the whole Pacific coast where you get ocean views. So let's keep that in mind.
Yeah, we do have a small segment where you come out of the woods and then you just get this incredible view of the ocean, and it's awesome.
Is that in the Wilder, is that right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We benefited from logging because of that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not part of that.
What do they call that, view shed enhancement? Is that
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, great.
So, when I hear you talking a little bit about stitching together trails and great views, I keep thinking about the Oregon Coast Trail.
Mhm.
So is what you're talking about here, like literally a parallel to the Oregon Coast Trail, or are you talking about weaving into the Oregon Coast Trail? How does that?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, the Oregon Coast Trail is an awesome low-hanging fruit opportunity, to integrate mountain biking or fat biking on sections of the Coast Trail. Would be something, as a group of mountain bike advocates, I would really, push for. It's one of those things that is in development.
It's got a lot of momentum right now.
It's got a ton of momentum, it has a ton of resources going to it, and the rationale for not including mountain biking is pretty arbitrary.
And I think that they have state parks, it's been like no biking on the Oregon Coast Trail. I do think like Tora's presence a lot at those Oregon Coast Trail stakeholder meetings has started shifting the needle, because some of those first conversations they're like absolutely not, conflict, whatever. The next time they're like, well, maybe. So I think it is important, like that advocacy piece that Steven said is so important is, because that trail is in a lot of development. It's also one of our priority projects as well.
Like similar to what Eric was saying, we've spoken to Rob and Wilcox, I think
Yeah.
is her last name, about the Oregon Coast Trail, and she works for Oregon State Parks. I was kind of knocking on the door every time I would see Rob and be like, hey, Rob, I'm here, mountain biker, we're going to the Oregon Coast Trail, what can we do? And she essentially was like, it was created as a hiking trail, and we want to maintain it as a hiking trail. There are a lot of impasses that the Oregon Coast Trail is trying to figure out how to remedy. And I feel as though that's really where we could maybe get our foot in the door and, work collectively to get through these impasses, create maybe little corridors that are, hiker biker friendly, and then that might open the door long term to, create a better relationship with them and potentially then be, making a multi-use trail in that sense. But it certainly seemed to be a little bit, they have their direction, it's more hyper focused on hiking.
Yeah, I mean, it seems simpler, right? It is keep it to a single user type. And I think a lot of those fears are just fears and not really based in reality. They're just sort of based in some, precedent. Just use types aren't compatible with each other. And I think there's some really good studies now that disprove a lot of those assumptions that bikes cause erosion, that bikes are causing conflict with other trail users. So I think just taking a scientific approach to it, disproving those fears, and just listening to people, goes a long way. Just talking to people, being like, hey, we want the same trail as you want.
Right.
So, I was literally walking on a new section of the Oregon Coast Trail, the Connie Mountain, and she said her default position is that any new trails that are developed are open to mountains, even if it's part of the Oregon Coast Trail. So that's helpful. So I think, and then to your point, Josh, what about opportunities where mountain bikers are developing a section of trail that could be incorporated into the Oregon Coast Trail to fill some of their more dangerous gaps? And that's a great way to draw them and say, okay, well, that's cool, but they also want to get access to some of the existing trails. So I think there's a good partnership there for sure.
Yeah.
And they have money also, there's a lot of money coming towards the Oregon Coast Trail right now, so we can create these thoroughfares, even if it's just a main line through, and you have maybe mountain bike specific off of that, that would be a really good connection for everybody.
One of the things about the Oregon Coast Trail was it kind of did the same thing you did with Timber Trail, in that right off the bat they had 50% of the trail done because it's sand and right. So
easy.
Right, boom, you're halfway done. That was actually 70. But you could take advantage. We could take advantage of that sand right now. Some people aren't going to want to put their $6,000 mountain bike in the sand with the salt, but a lot of people will, and that is to me also defining the experience. Is this about downhill or is it about all these different things? And we did the we did that Fat Bike tour, and people are fat biking. Hotels are buying fat bikes. That's to me part of this, can be part of the bike packing experience. It can be part of this off-road experience that you can connect into. We can do right now, you know. And then with the Oregon Coast Trail, they'll be getting some of these key problem areas that are dangerous for road bikers, mountain bikers, hikers, just people who are traveling within their cities. And so those are ways that we could connect. And so I think looking at, like, we've got a downhill section here in this town, and then you can ride on the sand and go over this bridge here, and then you're onto another section and you can just stay on your bike the whole time. I think that would be huge.
Yeah. So, like, looping us back in, yes, definitely Oregon Coast Trail, huge asset on the coast. Continue working with all the entities involved in developing that. See if you can integrate biking in as much as possible.
And this whole conversation isn't about developing one type of experience. I think it's really looking at, are you trying to engage people from the Portland Metro, people from California driving to Whistler, like who are you trying to get to come to the coast and ride? And then provide a multitude of experiences, because all of those people are going to want different types of experiences. So, you know, we can have one day fat biking on the beach and one day, you know, taking laps on a shuttle ride or something.
If I could add one thing that kind of carries over to advocacy in general, when we have, so Oregon Coast Trail is a legacy trail, but it's, as someone who spends their day job working with data, trying to convince people using science, I think people have, it's much more emotional than that, and there's really a legacy attitude, if you will, about mountain bikes. And so those legacy trails were built before mountain bikes existed.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they were built for mountain bikes. They were built for hikers because there wasn't, you couldn't mountain bike.
Yeah.
So that emotional piece is really important in the advocacy, because people are very afraid of it. And you can present all the data in the world and it's not going to matter one bit, because they have their fears and you're not going to do anything about it. And we have to be really mindful of that.
Well, yeah, and then proactively reach out to those groups that do feel threatened and, you know, work with them to eliminate that fear. You know, it's been a huge issue with the Timber Trail, with specific user groups. You know, we've gone to great lengths to specifically address their concerns and foster mutual stewardship activities, activities where you know, we're getting out with those user groups that feel whatever perceived threat that they feel about the mountain bike community. And then, you know, with the Timber Trail, it's also showcasing that this is a different style of mountain biking. It's slower, it's more experiential based on the longer term of things. So it's also like showing them that it's not exclusively full face helmets, dual crown fork bikes, and, you know, throwing dirt everywhere. So showcasing the whole spectrum of what mountain biking is and could be, you know, I mean, that's the other part. It's like, you know, you have trails specifically developed for certain styles of riding, but if you develop trails for kids, you start seeing a lot more kids in the system. So you're onto it in Newport, it sounds like, you know, with the NICA event out there, that's super positive, seeing kids on trail. It's hard to tell anyone when there's like kids out there and healthy, that that's a bad thing.
So we're actually running a little bit slow, and we're going to do a lot of this discussion at the end, so let me wrap this up and maybe we can dive into it in a little more detail. So tagging into the photo aspect, really, you know, you can spend 20 grand on a really slick marketing campaign, and people are going to be like, that's a really slick marketing campaign, but do riders actually care? So really, like, work on engaging that core audience and getting people that matter to the communities you're trying to bring out to come and experience it firsthand and then tell people about it. Provide really good resources. That's one of the things, like especially with the Timber Trail, really complex, really long. We provide really thorough and really detailed resources. Now we have the best day rides of the Timber Trail, so it's not just this bike packer. Now we have, like, you can go on a road trip and hit these 12 different day rides along the Timber Trail and get a little sampling of each tier. So just look at what type of experiences you're trying to provide, and then provide the resources for riding those, whether it's a 1 hour ride or a full day ride or whatever it may be. Build community, that's what we're doing right now. We're meeting each other. You know, the Oregon coast, like I said, is a long, a large area, and we probably don't all know each other, so to start working with each other and figuring out what works for you and how you've overcome challenges in your neck of the woods. And then with the timber trail, we really kept that stoke going. Keep dropping that hut-to-hut concept, you know, like it's still just as scary and hard sounding as it was 4 years ago, but you know, it's still in our long-term vision, and we're still working towards that, and people really stay engaged and really get excited about that. Same thing goes with any, you know, building just a 2-3 mile connector between two existing trails. I think that's really exciting. Now I can ride on single track uninterrupted for, you know, 20-30 miles instead of having to ride, you know, a detour on a gravel road or something. And then metrics, look at who's coming to visit, monitor use, and just look at what's successful and what's not, and then go from there. Like I mentioned, we have that survey that takes a lot of demographic data from everyone downloading the resources. We do an exit survey that polls riders who've ridden part of the timber trail or all of the timber trail at the end of each season. We look at all that demographic data, we look at the website and how many people are hitting that. We've got webcams up, trail cams up on each one of the 4 tiers that are monitoring not only the amount of use, but you know, with the trail cam you can see the type of user on the trail.
How many cougars are cougar per tier ratio?
Yeah, we're looking at least 1 cougar for every tier. That's our goal.
That's our mascot. Yeah, exactly.
So what's next? Well, how can we bring this to the coast? So let's do a thorough inventory of trails. I bet you if we spend another couple hours in this room, we could come up with that inventory right now. This one's a little bit more complicated. Instead of the trails we already have, let's look at land ownership, land management, and see where the potential for more trails might be. How can we connect the trails that already exist on this little bit of public land? And then there's another bit of trail of public land over here. Like, is there any public land in between those where trails could be? Like, really look at that bigger picture connectivity and how you can build out where are these opportunities close to cities or metro areas? How do we provide mountain biking opportunities in places that make sense for the people that are going to be using them? Really start developing that communications piece. Really build on a photo library that you can use in all your channels and really start to inspire people to come visit. Really solidify that coastal brand. Develop a communication strategy using all these materials to tell people about this place that even if it's not done yet, you're working really hard to develop for them. People get excited about that. They want to, even if it's not done, they want to know about it and they want to come visit. And then stay networked, stay really connected to your community. It takes a lot of time, it's a lot of answering questions over and over again, but it's really, really important just to be really engaged with the community that you're trying to reach and the community that you have between your different trail networks, between the people right here in this room. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. This is sort of a review of those key components that we went over, and we talked about a lot of them, but I guess, how much more time do we have? Does anyone?
Yeah, until noon, I think.
All right, so we've got maybe half an hour. All right.
Sweet.
Yeah, let's turn the lights on and maybe hash out the specifics of some of these.
Yeah, so what we plan on doing now with you is just doing a really brief exercise here to just help analyze demographic of who's coming, what you want to target, vision, what's the vision for coastal riding, how do you develop buy-in, how can we make this concept stand out from the rest of Oregon, from the rest of the Western United States. How can we inspire? Who are the influencers that we can invite? Or who are they on the coast? How do we inform users? What's our community what's the long-term vision for Stoke, and how are we going to measure our success here? So this is not by any means going to be a comprehensive analysis, but this is just going to get us started. Yeah, just a starting place as a community, and then in future meetings, hopefully this group can get together, even grow in size, and then you can start, at least from an initial framework, to figure out how to develop things like that coastal brand.
So yeah, a question on, this information or the inventory, who's going to be the holder of initial process? Like what, if I wanted to email and hit all of those stakeholders on the list like that, are there?
So we've talked to Arica a little bit that this is the start of a process. So hopefully Arica will be able to kind of manage us through this process as it transitions into something that OCVA or even maybe a coastal mountain biking organization can eventually own. So
you all probably try to communicate or do communicate with your networks right now. Facebook groups are a good tool if it works for everyone involved. Google groups are another tool. Basecamp, I know Trevor already used Basecamp a lot. I think it just sort of depends on what's going to work for the people involved.
But for now, that's a good place to think of.
Yeah, I mean, this body of work is living with OCVA at the time being, but in terms of like what comes of it, it's up for all of you to decide, where this goes and how it's developed. Yeah.
So who you want to bring to the coast? I think Travel Oregon defines a traveler or a tourist as someone who travels 50 miles to a destination. So how far, what piece do you have to go to reach 50 miles? It's basically the rest of Oregon. Any population that's not on the coast is a traveler to the Oregon coast. So is it the Portland metro area? Is it the rest of the valley? Is it people traveling from California? Is it people traveling from Washington?
Yes.
So what is the who? Are we talking about the users right now?
We're talking about who we want to attract.
Who we want to attract, okay.
Yep.
So Portland, Valley.
Northern Cal.
So, a question. So, we threw an international there, but international and long distance travel to the U.S., are they bringing their bikes with them, or are they looking to rent?
Both. Yeah. Yeah. It really depends on the user. Like those Norwegians that came, they most definitely brought their own rigs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's again probably like maybe the next question, like what kind of experience are they looking for? Like if they're a really dedicated core user, they're gonna bring their own bike. If they're just like come with a family and want to like ditch for a day and go ride, then come rent a bike.
Well, then you've got the issue of where are rentals and who is renting? Because we don't have one in Booth Bay, I have to send them down abandoned.
I think that will organically kind of take care of itself. As the users show up, there's going to be industry, then there's going to be that has to be taken care of. Somebody, whether it's somebody that's already in recreation, they're now split as far as park, mountain bike, and then kayaking, whatever they're.
Surf shop.
I think it's broken into two sections for me. One, the who is people that live within, 100-mile radius may be coming specifically to ride. People outside of that radius are coming to do multiple sports and have multiple experiences.
And that's one of the things that we didn't have as what's a draw to the Oregon coast. I think the Oregon coast has the potential to have multi-sport activities. Oregon coast, you can go mountain biking, you can go surfing, you can have a picnic on the beach, you can go kayaking, wildlife watching. Like you go to Oak Ridge and you're just going to go probably ride your bike. There's not a whole multitude of things for people to do, or for the whole family to do.
I would add Bend and Hood River to that route.
Yeah, I mean, we're the big riding communities in this state, right? We're like the resident riders, Bend and Hood River. In the summer months, those places are blown out. No hero dirt there. That's that summer riding season for them.
So, a lot of us in the North Coast are experiencing, we have a lot of tourism that come into the area already. Our commissioners bring up a good point, and something that tourism kind of have focusing on, is bringing the locals into it. I mean, that's somebody you say, ooh, I really want to see a community here locally that we do not have currently. You know, we can't go up and ride bikes in an area, and I think that's something that we would all benefit from wellness-wise, or however you might look at it. They're going to create a culture here that's going to feed the rest of that.
And that's a really good point. I'm glad that came up, because if you get the locals stoked on it, they're gonna get all the rest of these people to come.
And I think that is really, really important. And I want to touch on what Josh talking about. I mean, our county, Tillamook County has fully said with their new tourism investment plan that they really don't want to promote tourism anymore. You know, what they want to do is build infrastructure, because, and this isn't about the need for money or whatever. This is all about just the community saying, stop, we can't take it anymore. So this is the official like call, it's 2.0. So there's got to be some bit of attention to that. And you know, as because we are part of the community, we need to pay attention to our county.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's a touchy subject, because we're talking about tourism here, this workshop.
Sure. Yeah,
and nothing
it's
else.
Definitely a tourism conference, so we're not bringing people out. So,
right, I know. So
when you look at it though, you're taking new construction or new infrastructure, and you're creating demand in seasons, shoulder seasons, off seasons, where the coastal communities traditionally a little bit more depressed. What was it? Somebody said a line, it's like every winter the coast has a recession, and that's a reality. So how do we mitigate that from happening? It's developing year-round activities that are accessible, that drive business to the winter months.
I think really taking a strategic approach to that and being like, this can actually solve problems instead of create or exacerbate more problems.
But you're absolutely right.
But what I wanted to touch on was that the locals didn't come first, because they're, in the long run, in 10 years from now, when the visitors come and see a healthy local population of users, which in some of our other recreational activities doesn't happen. And it's kind of sad. Surfing for one. There's way more people coming here to surf than there are local surfing. And that's not the ideal picture as far as we're concerned. And if you nurture the locals, then when the visitors do come, they're like, wow, this is a holistic, awesome thing here.
Script point.
I was just going to ask if we could add the filter of when to the who, because that does kind of frame it. If we are building this for the shoulder off season, and then obviously connecting with the locals, if that's your primary filter, then you are taking care of a lot of the issues that we're all facing.
I think it's certainly going to add to our peak seasons, but at the same time, it's going to help disperse those crowds and not the areas that are already saturated.
I never heard
of
it.
win-win.
Yeah, I didn't realize, and I focus on Oak Ridge as well as Florence. I hadn't really thought about it in terms of the coast is the perfect winter mountain biking destination. Awesome, right there, you got it.
Cool. Well, let's keep moving. Let's do the what.
So what is the experience you want to deliver on the coast? Is it exclusively fat biking in sand? What are the experiences that not just right now, but what do you want to have? Do you want to have everything? Do you want to kind of own specific areas? Like what's the vision for what you want to?
It's the diversity.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's that's the big plus. When you go up the Clutchie Creek Trail and you get to the top of that mountain and you can see all the way to Washington, you can see it standing in one spot. You can see the Columbia River and the whole coast. It's just, and then you can also ride through very old timber. The clear cuts, not so much fun.
But fuchsias, they're fuchsias, right?
And the ocean, you guys hit on this earlier, is the ocean.
Yeah.
And being able to see it from a mountain biking trail.
And then that it's a rainforest in our coastal alone, the dirt is
The weather, I think, is
Amazing, it's where it should be focused.
Yeah.
too hot in the summer to go there, so.
Temperate climate.
That's right. Question, but is it one long trail where we're moving them together, or is it the hubs that are connected? What, or is it the sand? I'm not a mountain biker, so I don't know the experience people are looking for. All I want from the tourism side is to get people into our communities and to get them into all of the communities up and down the coast. So what is the actual?
I mean, I think for the timber trail, obviously we're focusing on that long distance trail. I think there's a much, while that demographic is growing, I think there's a much larger demographic of people who just want to drive and go mountain biking. In that survey from the timber trail, we found that even with the Oregon Timber Trail, 75% of the people using the timber trail were just driving, car camping, and doing day rides. So that's, yeah, I think that's a good question, really identifying that type of experience, like what are you trying to create? And you know, with the timber trail, we're trying to create more of like nodes along this long distance route now. There really are like hubs that bring people there that they can do a couple days in one node.
I think the coast really has the asset of one, like we were talking about the surf and turf, you have the ability to see the views out of riding this amazing soil, which I think is one of our biggest assets is the soil that we have, as they touched on in the video. This loamy soil that we have, it drains really well, it dries well during the winter. During the summer, it's not dusty, as dusty as like the van soil. You can almost mark it as dust-free trails here on the coast. It's really quite possible. There's a lot of, we have a lot of organic, and that just kind of binds it together, makes it really attractive to mountain bikers. And it's proven up in BC, and we're right here in Bellingham, something similar, and we have the magic. We just got to get it.
Great.
I would put on there working forests. I think one of the things we tried to use as an asset that Chris pointed out really early on is that we didn't build a trail in a working forest, and that's just part of the story. And if we try and fight against our counties and our feds who are going to cut logs, we may run into more resistance than if we just embrace what we are.
And if you look at like the land management, land ownership inventory, you're going to find that, the Oregon Timber Trail, we were able to connect that many trails because it goes to the Cascades, which are all national forest essentially. On the coast, it's a lot more patchwork, you have a lot more timberland. There just isn't the public land that there is in the Cascades, so you're going to have to get creative with private land, especially working forests. And I think there's some really good case studies that are just starting. Obviously Cooperative Creek, Rocky Point, in the Portland metro area, and I look, north to Washington too. They do a lot of stuff. They do a very little on national forests. Most of what they do in Washington State is on state managed lands or private lands.
Yeah, I would just say, to me, we don't really need to reinvent the wheel with this. We can look at communities that have built this before and done a really good job at it, like BC, like you guys are mentioning, and Squamish. They have similar terrain. If we can be that next terrain, that new discovery of even a similar system, and then bring to the table what we have that's unique, like the and some of the other attributes that we have, then we're just going to knock it out of the park. And it really is we don't need to come up with a full new system. We know what's out there, and we know what guys like riding. We know it works well. And if we can just do that similar thing down here and then take our twist and add it to it, then it's just going to be a home run.
Totally. All right, we can keep moving. What do we got? Vision. That actually is a great segue, what you just said, the vision.
I think it's sticky, so we can put it on the wall.
Oh, really? Wow.
Maybe on the window, so I don't have to paint windows.
Oh, they are. Look at that.
No, that's on.
Yeah. Probably should have gotten better handwriting if I knew they were going to be
Gabriel, before you hit vision, just a kind of a thought on the who, what. Is there a slice of visit tourism that does trail work that anybody's experienced?
Volunteerism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a small one, or does anybody experience that?
We do stewardship campouts for the Oregon Timber Trail Alliance. We get people down to between Hager Mountain this year, which is way out in the middle of nowhere.
And they're coming from Eugene, Portland, which is like 6-7 hour drive.
People are driving 6-7
Small
hours
slice maybe of
to
people.
spend their whole weekend in the woods clearing trail. I think it's very clearly documented, or at least we can provide that case study through the Timber Trail Alliance that people will travel to a destination and work their butt off for an extended period of time.
I mean, like he was saying, so we've already got it.
Yeah.
We can, maybe part of the preload is for those that kind of want to do that.
Sure.
To be the pioneers
Yeah,
of our system.
So maybe volunteerism, yeah.
Yeah.
Clutchie benefited a lot from that, haven't you guys?
The whole thing was volunteer.
Yeah, massively.
It's very cool.
I mean, it's like super exciting. You get like just that core group. It doesn't need to be a ton of people. You get 6 people out there building trail, then they get to ride it afterwards. I mean, that just is a really exciting thing for people to do. And then they tell people about it.
And then they're forever invested in the area. They're like, oh, I remember cutting that big log out, or I remember, whatever it is. They're
Yeah, I
invested.
ride parts of the
That's
timber
good.
trail and I'm like, I remember putting that rock there where the stream crossing, you know?
And we've done that with like Trail Keepers of Oregon, that's been doing that, we've really like getting locals to be invested, or like, because people come out on the weekends to be invested in their trail, so we're also dividing it up, so each trail team would have its own name, its own t-shirts, people can really have pride in that part of the trail they're working on, so it's a good point, something that we're definitely thinking about.
Cool. Going back to your who category, so do you have some numbers on how is the mountain bike trail riding community growing steadily, and what pace is it growing at? Where is it growing also? Is it just the 20-some-year-old guy going out for a day ride car camping, or is it somebody 30s or 40s that packed up the family and going with them and stayed in a hotel, going to restaurants, or what's this looking like from the investments?
I mean, I don't really have necessarily like the best industry statistics, but I think there's been tremendous industry growth on all sectors, and like you'll see like bike manufacturers respond with new bike types because the user groups are changing. Like gravel bikes became a thing a few years ago. Fat bikes definitely came online, and all these new bikes that are getting developed are creating new user groups and a higher diversity of users than what traditionally existed. So you don't have, I use the example of like full face mountain bikers with dual crown forks. That's not what mountain biking is exclusively anymore. There's all types of riders. I went down to the opening of a Whiskey Run, and there were probably more kids than there were, mid-30 males. So it's a great example, and I think, it's up to you all to curate that type of experience if you want it.
I just pulled the, sorry.
I was just having a point of you, Gabe. I think there's some really good information on Oregon Bike Coalition.
Yeah.
If you go to the website, there's some of those statistics that you can look up and find those answers, correct?
Yeah, the ONBC, the Oregon Mountain Biking Coalition, has a resource library that's got a lot of research studies about user conflict, trail impacts, a lot of really specific to Oregon data, and then just some really catchy stat slides too. And a lot of that data is actually pulled from the SCORP study, which is a little bit overwhelming, but a really comprehensive look at recreation in Oregon. And I haven't looked at it for the Oregon coast, but like it's broken down by county. Like I can say Deschutes County, Bend, 25% of the residents in Deschutes County ride mountain bikes, which is huge. 1 out of every 4 people in Deschutes County rides a mountain bike. Statewide, Oregon has 620 off-road cyclists. Like that's enormous. That's 15% of the population of Oregon. So there's a lot of really good data in there. It doesn't delve down into what kind of helmet people are wearing or whatever, but it's still a really good place to start.
So Coastal Vision.
Yeah, vision.
What does it need to be centered around? Like what's going to bind you all? Like what is going to take the folks down in southern Oregon coast, Whiskey Run, Rogue, those trail systems? Like what is going to be your backbone of through a collective vision? Yeah, Joe.
I think our biggest asset is the brand. If we can create a brand throughout the coast, once again, we talk about creating that kind of DC experience where you travel from one to the other. instead of people going to Bend, going to Oak Ridge, going to Portland to mountain bike, they set their destination to go to Clutchie, go to Florida, go to Newport, and then heading down to Whiskey Run. That's their experience in Oregon. That's a really strong brand to carry. And I feel as though that would be a reality for a lot of people. That would be something that we would want to do. So, a little bit of effort.
So how does the Oregon coast differentiate itself? Like if I'm from New Zealand or if I'm from Colorado and I want to go to either BC or the Oregon coast, like what's going to be the Oregon coast differentiator?
Beer.
And that vision. Yeah, beer. Much better, cheaper beer.
Better, cheaper beer.
But you bring up a great point though, because you know, I mean, like that after ride, that's what, you know, that's why there's a tourism conference, like looking to do the economic development components of these riders. Like, how do you get them into your business?
Gotta have seafood.
Yeah.
Seafood.
I think it is that it's the Oregon coast on and up.
Yeah.
Because the Oregon coast is amazing.
Right.
And then you get to do your favorite thing.
For me, and I could be wrong, but I think that like riding at Whistler is more just bike specific and more, I don't know, like I think of the Oregon coast as more families are going there for multiple activities. And so I would say for me it's more about family experiences, family health in the outdoors.
And you don't see that a lot of places. I mean, you see a lot of other destinations they really focus, Bend or Sun River, you have trails and then you have, a pub or a restaurant or something. There's not a huge variety. I guess floating on the river in the summertime, but I think that's really important.
Sorry to interrupt you. What I think about when I hear that and some of the other things that are important to me that I hear, it's kind of defined by approachability. I think the Oregon coast is very approachable. I think it's very approachable for families. I think it's approachable if we're creating trail systems that are easy to get to, easy to understand, affordable and close to various accommodations. I think that'll be our attraction to others.
So I think you're defining when you said approachable, can you be more, when you think of approachable, what exactly?
Well, one example is, and she just mentioned the word accessible too, which may be somewhat synonymous in the way I'm thinking about this. One would be using your example for families. So you don't have to be the hardcore rider to ride our systems. You can ride it at various levels. You can ride it at all seasons of the year. You can choose different systems along our coast based on where you want to visit, or you can visit all of them. You can come out in a day and back, or you could come stay a week. Whistler to me is not approachable. It's expensive, and you have to really focus your planning and your budget on going to Whistler to do that. Oregon coast, it's easy for anyone up along the I-5 corridor, even Bend, even southern Washington, to get down to us and even get back in the day if they need to, but they can stay longer.
Another thing about those, we have gas that we were talking about, is the soil, and it's also not only building the shoulder seasons, but it's also building the shoulder communities. Once again, dispersing this crowd, going from the coast, the extreme coast, where Lincoln City, Pacific City, Newport, Seaside, whatever you're talking about. The coastal mountain range is also a huge asset to us. That's just on the east side of it, getting those people out there. And it's 20 minutes from the coast. And so once again, it's kind of helping these shoulder communities we have. But once we don't hear about that, they add communities more or less, and bring industry to those areas, which would be very beneficial.
I think just talking about vision, one thing that sets us apart that would be worth highlighting is a lot of the communities we're talking about, mountain bike communities, are really focused at a single resort, like, at Bachelor or at Whistler. They have that access where you go and you set up camp and you're in that village for a week with your family. And we could be like, oh, bummer, we don't really have that on the coast. But what we're talking about here is something better than that. where it's an experience where you don't just go to one place and ride a chairlift every day. You're hitting the North Coast, you're hitting the Central Coast, and you're hitting the South Coast. So telling that story that this is more of an adventure, it's a mountain bike adventure and an experience where you're coming to the coast and you're experiencing different towns, different trails, different environments, and you're not just going to one place and hanging out there for the weekend.
Yeah, if you look at Oak Ridge, that's a destination, and they have amazing trails, but they struggle to develop that infrastructure in town, the amenities, that mountain bikers want in town. Oregon Coast is the opposite. You guys are just starting to develop these trails, but you have this amazing tourism infrastructure already here that you don't even need to think about developing. It already exists, and not only it already exists, we're going to be using it in the off season when it's not being used.
Yeah, and I think a tangible way that we can show people that that's an experience that they can have is create an event that's in the winter that features maybe 3 different locations along the coast, north, central, south, and it's a competition, and you go and you compete at all 3, and then the winner gets to take the prize. But it's a way to show people that, hey, you can come to the coast, you can experience 3 different unique locations within 3 different days and look at these different trails. And I think we build an event around it. I think that would be awesome. Drive a lot of awareness for sure.
You'd ask if, or someone asked, if you're coming from New Zealand, for example, to do this, why do you choose Oregon over Whistler? And I think that's a great thing to look at, like if you're going after the mountain biking. But I think there's another way to look at, which is opposite, which is the mountain biking becomes just one more of the great activities that you can do at the coast. And so it's an add-on. It's the thing that gets people to come maybe off season. It's an activity that gives the people to stay an extra night or 2 or whatever. So that's another way to look at it is it's not the thing that people are coming for, but it's the thing that people stay for.
It's like what Chris said, you're coming to the Oregon coast, the coast sells itself, but you also get a mountain bike now, which is all pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
So it then be developing the experiences and the rental services and everything, so people can just seamlessly pick up mountain biking. So
Could you add NICA to Vision?
NICA or just
That's a great one.
kid?
There's not enough room, sorry.
Does everyone know what NICA is?
Yeah,
NICA, National Interscholastic
Cycling
Association. So they do
high school kids mountain bike.
high school, middle school. Middle school too, middle school and high school mountain biking. So buy-in, who are the stakeholders? Let's transition a little bit. We did an awesome job on, finding a good bulleted list there to craft a vision statement. Who in this room do we need to invite to make sure we have a well-informed decision-making process so that in an ideal world, everything that you come up with, as a collective just sees the green light? Who do you need to get involved in this process?
Land managers.
Elected officials.
Community.
Businesses, local businesses.
Me.
Yeah, you can find yourself on the cover of a video or
But
here's my
I got 2 of those. Land managers, elected officials,
I'd like to see a video.
Local
Community.
businesses.
local businesses.
CMOs.
Oh yeah, those guys.
Other trail users.
I think one thing that's worth mentioning as we talk about buy-in is just the amount of economic sustainability that comes from creating year-round recreational activities. You can look at all the statistics, and the towns that have thriving recreational activities are the same ones that are having thriving economies. People are moving to these places. They want to live somewhere where there's a good year-round experience. So when you're talking to stakeholders that might not mountain bike, it's good to inform them and let them know, hey, if we can create trails here, it's going to make people want to stay in your town. They're not going to come to your town and visit and hang out and leave. They're going to want to actually move here, and that's going to create your economy. So I think
really good. Are you referring to that really good study that was done in Arkansas?
I haven't read that one, but I've read a lot just about Iceland and some of the stuff that they've done to enhance their communities and get kids out of doing drugs and other hazardous lifestyles.
So employers, we have a hard time attracting professionals for those reasons.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the towns that are really growing, like Bend or Boulder or like BC, where people are like moving there in mass exodus. It's like the towns that have the most access to outdoor recreational activities.
Not
And I think
necessarily
it's-
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, outdoor rec.
Exactly. Yeah.
Regional economic development groups.
And I would say city planners, yeah.
I think local residents as well, like if your mountain bike trail is going to be from your house, just let them know. I think since business is a big deal, there's a few more people, like this is awesome, but like people might think have like this crazy vision of what a mountain biker is and be like, I don't want them in my backyard or my kids, so making sure that local residents know, especially if the trail's going around their houses, I think is a good one. And also environmentalists. If they're like, oh, your trail's gonna kill the silver spot butterfly and snowy clover, if you're like, actually, we put a lot of thought into this, we're not just coming in. So I think those are two groups as well that are also overlooked.
And different from land managers is private landowners, always private landowners, timberlands.
So I can give you a perspective from a local business standpoint and the buy-in for events. You had mentioned branding to create events. But I can give you an example from Seaside's perspective. We have two major events that we work with in the summer season. One of them is beach volleyball, largest beach volleyball event in the U.S. And to the coast. Two very, very large events. I can tell you it's like a 14,000 times multiplier on beach volleyball versus Hood to Coast, because Hood to Coast starts their advertising from Mount Hood. And so locals can't get in on the action because it's a big ticket price. And so from a local business standpoint, from a community standpoint, there's certain people that can capitalize on it, but not everyone equally from a local business standpoint and from a community-based standpoint. So that would be something you touched on local community too. So
We have a specific thing happen with the coast.
Right.
And reach the beach.
So as you create those events, you have to make sure that the local communities are on board, because that's the economy that you're trying to build up, and they're going to embrace you more by incorporating that into the event.
So should I add that back to vision, like locally crafted?
It's kind of all tied in together.
Yeah. Locally owned.
Our first buy-in was the public school system for our trail system.
Really?
Yeah, right? As kids. And now we have already a thriving interest in the trail system that hasn't even developed yet.
That's awesome.
I think a couple specific drill downs in local business too are lodging operators that can help us sell the vision, and then bike shops or bike-friendly guides. When I think of back to approachability and making it easy to do this, I think about Cog Wild and Bend and how crucial they are in making mountain biking accessible, approachable to people throughout Bend. If I want to know about riding in Bend, I call Cog Wild. And they're a guide service that knows everything about it. They can take me out, or they can just tell me what trail to ride.
And if you look at, setting up a tour company, that business model, and you look at the hoops that Cog Wild has to jump through with the Forest Service to get a certain amount of permanent days to function in the Deschutes National Forest. We just talked about who owns the land that you're operating on. You might not necessarily run into as many constrictions in terms of, or constraints I should say, in terms of how those tour operators would function. So when you develop critical mass of trail systems on the coast, you might have the most accessible opportunity for a local tour operator to take advantage of that system because they're working with the county or the private timber owner to introduce people to their lands, versus going through a really intensive process with the Forest Service to get a permit to run business on public land. So, great point.
Where are we, Dave? We're doing brand?
Yeah. I sort of lumped a couple of those in there that all revolve around like telling your story, brand, inspiration, influencers. How does that look like? What are like the specifics of like what are the tools you can use to really tell that story?
Social media.
media.
This is his social media, advertising,
Yeah.
Hashtags.
I would suggest that there may need to be some serious consideration and work done on what exactly is the story that needs to be told. We have specifically on the South Coast, and I don't know if it's weird on the North Coast, but we have an aging demographic here. So how do we convince an aging demographic with the whole host of issues we're seeing on the coast that investment in mountain biking infrastructure and trails is going to benefit them? So, I just think that economic development story about how we inspire more youth, how we inspire people to move here, that this is part of the ecosystem in which to do that, that story, in order to sell that to our communities, needs to be a little bit more fully fleshed out.
So how's that, sorry to interrupt now, but how's that started playing out on the South Coast? You guys are 2 years into, trail development. How's that narrative working out down there?
I think we're just starting to see the beneficial return, so
Yeah.
we haven't told that story really yet. I mean, we said that this is gonna happen, and it's starting to happen, but we haven't.
And I would say we have people like our local county commissioners who are starting to tell that story and who see that perspective. But I still think we have some work to do in making sure that people beyond those that are influencing the development of the trail, that there's a broader acceptance within the community of this as a thrust for the region.
So what are the locals' values, like just to generalize on the coast? What do people value here, and how can developing mountain biking accentuate those values?
And as you were talking, it just occurred to me that if it's an aging population, and if the value is on bringing the next generation into your community, you are bringing them into the community for the trail, and then they're seeing it. Oh my gosh, that's introducing the next generation to your community that's going to come and enjoy it and let them move there, or keeping the youth engaged and loving where they live. So it's actually a great economic engine. I hadn't thought about it until I was listening to you.
That just gets really complicated too, because a lot of people that are coming to the coast are trying to protect the nest egg that they develop, so they don't vote for school bond. They don't necessarily want more kids around them, and want it to be quiet. So it's a tough story to sell to them.
Being raised on the coast, I've seen so many leave the area because there wasn't a lot of amenities for them here. And so bringing this to the local communities, it gives kids a reason to stay. I mean, that's another way that the local communities really like this. It's like they now have industry, they have a reason, wellness is kind of all tapping into what is kind of trending.
Yeah, I'm just tapping into this idea of vitality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea of coastal vitality is like at the center of this idea. Healthy communities, healthy kids, healthy everything.
It's like you said earlier about kids getting out and biking is not a bad thing. You can find anything negative in that. And what happened in Seaside years ago that built the skate park is you had this huge population of kids suddenly become skaters. And they're still skating, now they're scootering out there, and I see the same thing happening with Coochie Creek Trail, inspiring this youth movement of all these new mountain bikers that are just gonna grow up and create more. So it probably goes more in community, but since you brought it up, I had to follow up on that.
You really see that working really well in the southeastern United States. I mean, I think someone brought up an Arkansas study. NICA has exploded in the southeastern states, and that really has, people are seeing their kids growing up, doing this healthy activity, playing outside. It's like that right there has given the trail developers and the communities working on these trail projects so much leeway to develop these things, because all of a sudden the community sees what it is. It's not something foreign, it's something that their kids are doing.
Yeah.
Well, Walmart always helped.
Yeah.
So each one of you has to call Nike tomorrow.
Didn't mean to pop your bubble.
Yeah.
From a branding perspective, I mean, I think people should really think long and hard about even using the word mountain. Even though there's just such amazing downhill around here, and that's something that maybe gets marketed on its own. But what I'm thinking about trail, or even just cycling in general, as an overarching category. When you think about the fat biking and the popularity, it's happening now. I mean, hotels, we were in the guy, Brian, bought 5 mountain bikes for his hotel, and they're used all the time, all summer long. And that's something that anybody can use. From 8 to 80, you can get on a fat bike, and if you fall in the sand, big deal, you know. So, and then you could take that to the store or whatever, you know. So to me, like, maybe broaden the idea of cycling in general. Think about taking the word mountain out of it, because, you know, I went on some great rides with a friend of mine who was absolutely not interested in going downhill at all, and loved that we went for miles on flat trails, or just, you know, went really slow when it went down. You know, so I think people get scared and they have, again, the full face helmet image in their mind. So trail and cycling, I think, you know, then, you know, you also have the bike route, the Oregon bike route, and so perhaps, and I'm not saying this is how you should do it, but perhaps think about connecting it into the whole cycling experience.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dan. Like, how does it connect with like really strong cycling assets on the coast? I mean, Pacific Coast route, you know, has been functioning since what, late 90s? Like early 90s?
Maybe even earlier.
Yeah, and there's tons of hiker biker camps. So
We just have a minute or two left. I want to get a couple things so this doesn't look so blank over here. Let's just do some yelling. How are we going to tell people? What tools are we going to use to...
Community meetings.
I know
Steven
has,
one first, huh?
like, I've seen Steven do a really awesome presentation showing all this, like the numbers and benefits, and I think it was really impactful. And oh yeah, we were all there together, yeah.
Website would be nice, consolidate our information, go there as a resource.
And partnering with GMOs and to get that message out to
Shout louder. Chambers.
All right.
what about the cycling websites?
Did someone say mapping?
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. How do we stoke that community? How do we build and stoke that community?
Events.
Beer.
We have to say.
All right, that's good.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything
like,
else?
You need to diversify your, back to branding, you have all the big hero shots, you need to have more shots of normal people riding these trails.
Let's bring that up early. One of them, I just pulled the trails cam off of one of the timber trail segments, and it's so interesting. You know, you see mountain bike media of that mountain biker, but on the trail cam, it's mostly people on mountain bikes from the 90s, you know, just have like a tool.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like having women, I think a lot of times, like when I think of mountain biking, I think of this group, which is heavily like men, and not, you know, not rough looking at, that's not the right word, but you know, you guys are of the earth. And if I saw videos of you guys flying down a hill, which I usually do, I'm like, that's super rad. I don't think I could do it, but you guys look good. So I think, yeah, having like others doing it too.
Women are the decision makers in the family stuff.
Yeah, they kind of true.
So we own a hotel, 75% of our reservations are made by the female member.
That's right.
Schools, once again.
Real power.
Schools.
Kids.
Okay, so yeah, it's schools, kids.
UGC contest would be sweet.
What was that one?
UGC user-generated content contest. Yeah, it helps build a community and get content and stoke people out there.
I think some like free, events, but also like events that are like free to community members that don't know about biking, like some like introductory stuff so that people understand like what it is and like how cool it is, could also be a good way to get your community involved.
So let's just say this gets all, you know, you're all super successful in 5 years. Like, what is gonna be, like, how you go back and measure or not whether you're successful? Like, what do you want to measure yourself on? Like, trail mileage, amount of visitors, like what are the things that you're going to measure your success by?
there's just gonna be a bucket next to each trailhead that's just has a label called Stoke, and if it's full, in 5 years.
Full of stuff.
For me, it's seeing like organic content on some of the mountain biking platforms, like Pink Biker stuff. Like when I start seeing more content around the Oregon coast on that site, that would be a huge.
Stuff that you didn't create through Aqua.
Yeah.
So what was that heat map you showed earlier?
So yeah, that was the Trail Forks heat map. So let's do a snapshot in time. Should we come back in 5 years and look at the heat map?
Does the heat map show seasonal, and does it show when they are? Can you do a heat map increase during the shoulder season?
I don't know that, but that's a great point. Like, metrics should be off-season visitation.
Right. Yeah.
Measurable off-season visitation, right? If we want to really achieve the goal, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Marty, yeah. If we want to achieve Marty's goal of making sure that folks aren't being overwhelmed by this, are we ensuring that this is happening off-season?
That data, that heat map data is provided by Strava, which does sell their data, like customized data packages, so I'm absolutely sure we could work with them to look at the more like granular data that's coming from.
So, obviously user numbers
Your mileage.
and mileage.
What about economic impact? Like, ends and beds, maybe.
So that's an area where we need serious help.
Cool, yeah. But there are like relatively easy metrics, like if there is a new bike shop that gets created, right?
Yeah.
Like that's gonna be a really easy baseline to assess how successful they are over time. So new businesses.
Relative industry.
Yeah, new industry.
I know Elliot keeps track of, at Bike Newport, he keeps track of the Oregon Coast bike route users.
Yeah.
So, informal, but all consistent basis.
Is there, and this is me just being sort of ignorant, in the like lodging industry, how do you gather demographic data about the people that are actually booking rooms? Like, is there optional surveys or checkboxes?
Zip codes. Zip codes from addresses.
But also purpose too, we do
purpose to visit.
We have a software where we can do that ourselves, we just have a layer of software so we can track those kind of things.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that would be super useful. So you can be like, was this person here to eat seafood or ride bikes or both, you know?
Do we get the trail cams on the coast too?
Sure.
Yeah, they're cheap. They're like $60, you know, and then you have the super important data. I mean, the hardest part about it is driving to go collect it and put them up each year.
Seeing how many cats are on the trail.
Bears. You mean big cats?
Yes.
And bears.
Cool. Well, I think we're like right or maybe a little bit over time. Is anyone burning to get anything out that we missed here?
Some sort of metric around collaboration. This is the first time I've heard kind of this regional collaborative conversation. So how we could figure out how to continue that, I think that would be a metric of success.
Great intro, great transition. Thank you, Marie. So this is the first meeting that we've gotten everybody together. I've talked a lot with all these different groups in the room, and that's why I was like, I think this will work. Like, you guys are already kind of collaborating. I know you're sharing different planning and trail builders, and you guys all kind of know each other, but we haven't been really intentional with becoming like a regional destination for mountain biking. So I believe that either Gabe or myself will be typing up these notes. If you registered for this workshop, I have your information, but I think a few of you, maybe, no, you did. There's maybe a few of you that just like kind of jumped in, Carly, Steven. There's a few of you, so make sure if you don't get an email from me that you just email me and be like, hey, can I get the notes back? And I can get that, Gabe and I will figure that out.
So do we have an email list of everyone? Do people register for this specifically?
Yes, there's a few people that haven't, but they can just email me and I'll make sure they get it.
So we don't need an email list from everyone here.
No,
to have that.
I don't think
Great.
so. And then, so hopefully this will be the first of many meetings. I think a little bit more logistically, I'm wondering if we did this meeting again, like where and what time of year we should do that, because it gets really tricky. I kind of try to plan like a year. I know the seasons get really hard in summer, so if you would want to have another meeting like this in the spring, and I know you guys are coming from all over, so if we did it Central Coast, if that could be okay. I'm getting nods.
What about January?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Talk about Iron's Hot.
Yeah.
Depends
on that's much slower than spring.
January.
Yeah, get him on board to help continue the process.
So we'll plan on having like the next follow-up meeting in January, and this is going to be the first of many meetings. OCVA's plan, like how we make our investments, is 2 years, and we are just almost halfway.
You just started.
Yeah, we just started. Wow, what month is it? Anyways, but we're in the first year of our 2-year plan. So being able to like get these conversations started now, that way in our next 2-year plan we can make a larger investment and really strategically make that investment will be beneficial for you guys. So thank you all for being here. You're all invited to join us for lunch downstairs. And also, if you're gonna go biking today and if you're gonna leave right now, I have a lot of to-go brisket from last night. It's already boxed up. Please take some with you downstairs. Okay, that's it. That's all I have. Gabe, did you want to say anything else?
No, thanks for coming. It's great to see you. Oh yeah, I've got Timber Trail stickers.